Thank you, Celine. That was amazing, we were all in awe watching you in the green room. I was learning a lot, Amanda. I think these guys already know a lot of that, so I'm looking forward to continuing and really expanding on the conversation. Female earning is so important, and we have so much potential. We know there are so many barriers out there. It's important that we acknowledge them, but that we also move past them and stop just talking about barriers and talking more about solutions. So I'm looking forward to expanding on all the great information that you brought to the forefront. First, though, quickly, I do want to take sort of a virtual snapshot because Claudia gave a very brief introduction to these women, but there's a lot more going on that I want you guys to know about and to have a little more context to the perspective that they're going to give us. So Amanda, let's start with you. You're much more than just Daily Worth now. We have Create Worth, we have Worth FM. I mean, and it's you have a wait list of like hundreds and hundreds of people at this point. People literally can't wait to work with Amanda. Tell us a little more.
Sure. So I started Daily Worth as a financial media company 9 years ago, a long time ago. And what we realized over the course of the last decade was that we were going to best serve women around their finances by becoming a financial services company that's changing the conversation, understanding that planning does work for a lot of women, and there's other ways to approach money that make it more accessible and more relatable if the traditional method doesn't work for everyone. So we started Worth Financial. We have Worth FM, which is an investing platform, Create Worth, which is our financial planning service, and we're doing it differently. We're changing the conversation so that it makes sense and is relatable no matter what your motivations or priorities are.
And to our point, she is actively doing something proactive, which is so important. And Farnoosh, with your podcast, which was a lifetime highlight to be on, you're just racking up. I mean, you have something like 600 something episodes, 500 million down.
5 million.
5 million.
It's sure,
it's
500
so
million.
I can't even. It will be soon, though.
I'll take it. And I hope you have better life goals than just being on my podcast.
Oh, it's a good life goal.
So thank you for having me. Thank you all for being here. So just to give you a little context and background, I've been working in the financial advice space for about 15 years, and most recently having a ball of hosting a show called So Money on as a podcast where we have these intimate conversations with people that we see all the time in the headlines and people we've never met, people from Tony Robbins to Margaret Cho, Tim Gunn, and then also Millionaires Next Door, about how they manage their money mistakes, their habits, their perspectives, and we go deep. And I've always wanted to do a show like this. I grew up in a Middle Eastern family. We talked about money all the time. It was very fluent in our dinner conversations, and I wanted to sort of replicate that for the masses. And a podcast is a great way to do it, as opposed to a YouTube video or a Facebook Live. It's the sort of things that people reveal on the show are amazing, and I think listeners just love connecting and saying, I'm just like that, or I also didn't ask for a raise and here I am. And Tim Gunn didn't get paid for the first 2 seasons of Project Runway.
No way.
Yes.
And he's a man.
Because he thought that you just didn't get paid in reality TV. Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
See, even men have to ask to get paid.
So I'm very excited about the podcast. I have the great honor of being the financial contributor to the Oprah magazine. And I've most recently wrote a book called When She Makes More, a very personal book that took on the current trend of women making more in their relationships, this incredible rise of women breadwinners. And I'm that person in my marriage, and I felt a little conflicted about it, and I wanted to explore what I was going through emotionally, and if I had any other women out there who were going through the same complexities, and certainly there are, and I wanted to write a book that really was devoted to them and their marriages so that they could thrive. And
I
it's
think
called
it was
When She
really
Makes
the
More.
first book like that really broke through a lot of sort of taboos that were under the radar that weren't being talked about. So I think that was great. And Miss Celine, thank you for your wonderful presentation, and congratulations. By the way, it's sort of public. You're now being promoted to being president of Prudential Advisors.
Wow.
So I know. So give us just a very quick headline of what's in store for you now. What are your focus of work?
Well, so Prudential Advisors is a major part of sort of Prudential's effort to really train and develop and make sure financial advisors are out working in our communities, and we're just going to have to keep growing. And you know, a lot of what we do is education and training, so that issues like these are really prominent in the discussions that we bring to people.
Again, actually being proactive and getting things done. So the first of we're going to basically take your presentation and break it down. And the first thing we want to talk about is the wage gap. And on my way here, I remembered a scene in Mad Men when Peggy, who's, you know, rising account executive, goes into her boss, her male, Don Draper, male, older white man boss, and she's upset. And why is she upset? She's not asking for a raise. She said, "You never say thank you." And he said, "That's what the money's for." And I feel like that was interesting because she didn't go in to ask for a raise. She wanted to be thanked. She wanted to feel appreciated. But maybe she should have asked for the money.
That's right.
Right?
That's
so you writing the book, let's go to Farnoosh first. You wrote the book on the breadwinner. What do you think about the wage gap these days? We're still seeing 79 cents.
Yeah, it was an interesting analysis for me looking into this situation. So, right, I'm looking at women who are making more in their marriages, meanwhile they're going to their jobs and still making less than their male counterparts. Right. And I can only really speak personally and share what has worked for me. And I don't know, you know, if there's if I'm making less than my male financial expert counterpart. We don't share those things. But that's the first tip, is amongst yourselves to go there with your female friends and colleagues whom you trust and share your salaries, share what you're earning, share how the negotiation went in the room with your boss that may or may not have ended well. These stories are invaluable. This information is invaluable. And I don't know if we'll ever get to a time and place where we're all just walking around sharing our salaries. We'd rather probably walk around naked, but we all have those friends. And over a cocktail or a tea, we will share a lot with each other. And I encourage you to talk more about your finances openly, and you will be empowered that way and informed. And the other thing that I did was I was very, I think, thankful that my parents, especially my father, who was the breadwinner in our family, was always encouraging me to ask for more. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but because I practiced it early on, and certainly didn't get the raises early on, but I practiced it and I got better at asking. And I also learned a really important tip, which is that if you're working in a corporate setting, typically like big companies, medium-sized companies, you can go to human resources usually and ask for your salary range or your salary band, which means that for someone in your position, let's say you're a junior analyst or a senior engineer somewhere, that company has a budget for someone in that position, and it's a range, 50,000 to, let's say, 80,000, and then you can ask, where am I on this range? And if you've been there for 10 years or 6 months, and you feel that your investment in the company, your time, your work is not kind of where it should be on that scale, that's a huge bit of information that can help you with your negotiation. I learned this at a job, used it in a meeting with my boss, coming with my facts, and it didn't really impress. She was shocked that I knew this, and I think she was a little embarrassed, but I knew going into my next job negotiation what the market valued me at, and was able to basically double my salary at my next job.
Double.
Yeah,
Very nice.
because I knew this context.
I like this.
So you just have to get informed, start practicing, not just, you know, it's never that easy, but that's what's worked for me, right? And
Right.
not settling. And thank you is not enough. You have to earn it.
Yeah.
Because you are worth it.
You are worth it. So to Amanda, who I was so impressed, you know, we saw all these statistics and I'm sitting here going, wow, I can't believe it. And she's going, uh-huh, uh-huh. Doesn't
did write a
surprise you at
book
all.
on it.
But she knows this.
So to continue speaking on this, it's also interesting, though, that as women, we think that if we earn more, that we're going to have more. And I just want to actually remember why it's important to think about earning more. It's not just about equality, but it's because we want to be able to not work until we die, right? That would be a great goal for all of us to have. And so the only way to not work until we die is to focus on our income really as how is it that I convert more of this income into assets? So I give you a metaphor to think about this, as I call it roots and wings, which is something that my mom always said to me when I was a child. She would say, Amanda, if I can give you roots, which is security, and wings, which is confidence, then you can do anything in your life. Isn't that really sweet? I thought so. But when you apply that to your finances, rather than just thinking about earning more, also think about your roots first. What are your assets? What real estate do you own? What's your retirement account look like? And how do your wings, your income, contribute to that? That'll be really inspiring as to why you earn more income, because you can see how it's building security so that you have income one day that you didn't have to work for.
Interesting. I want to get your perspective. You can look at this kind of from the top
Sure.
down because you've risen so much and you've gone through the system. What do you think about this? What is holding us back?
Well, I'll just add a little different perspective. I think those are all great comments. You know, one of the things, and it showed up in the Social Security information, women tend to have more breaks in employment than men. And when you have breaks in employment, you think, okay, every year you get a little bit more, you can keep up with the market, you fall back. And so I think your point is exactly right. When you are not as consistent in your working years, you really do have to know what the market pays today for the skills you have today. And if you have gaps in between, to do something that keeps you a little productive or in the know in your industry. But a lot of times you'll go in for a job and what was your last salary? That becomes the negotiating point. And that may have nothing to do with the market today. So I think that's exactly right. But just remember, it's sometimes those breaks and those gaps. It may be changing careers, right? We're not maybe not as consistent. And sometimes it feels like you're starting over.
I want to talk about investing. Amanda, you've got this amazing platform that's emerging, and it's the truth. There are literally hundreds of people on the wait list to get into this. You were looking at those statistics, as I mentioned, and not at all surprised. It's not just what you earn, it's what you keep and what you'll have at retirement. Talk a little bit about investing and what women need to be doing proactively to get better results, frankly.
Well, I think it's just an intimidating world. I mean, what we find is that the jargon is really difficult. You don't really know if you have enough money and who you should talk to. And when you say the waitlist, you're talking about CreateWorth specifically?
Yes, sorry.
Right, yeah, no problem.
There's a waitlist.
We have all sorts of products and brands. But yeah, it's what we've found is working best is not only providing a financial plan, but doing so in a community, so there's an educational component, as well as a network of other women to talk to. And that is, it's not just about, what my frustration has been is meeting so many powerful, amazing women who get a financial plan, but then they don't understand why, and they feel like they have to ask their advisor permission to do something. So what we're doing is we're creating the network to move the power into women's hands so that they're learning from each other, as well as figuring out what they need to do from all different backgrounds and perspectives. Definitely you don't have to be following linear steps in order to be successful.
Celine, what do you think?
Well, you know, again, as we talk about this as a general theme for women, I think part of it's just kind of getting interested in it, right? So if there's this reluctance for us to kind of engage and talk about and think about it, just know if we're going to own it, you really do have to own it. You have to get engaged. You have to read a few things. You have to think about it. You can find people to help you. You don't have to be your own financial guru. But you have to make it a priority. And you know, the information is always so interesting because it intersects in so many places. If you're spending more time than our male counterparts doing other things like caretaking and housework, when are you going to find the time to deal with your money? Well, put it in your calendar, right? Make a date with yourself on a regular basis to talk to yourself, do your budgeting, go through what you have, make it a priority and you know, whatever you schedule, you do. Right? That's what we're good at. So put it in your schedule, really make it a priority for yourself, and that's the start.
But you point out, as women, we have very complicated lives, and we have relationships that we have to manage. And Farnoosh, you literally wrote the book on this and managing your home life. What are some things that you have observed, especially the different generations? I mean, millennials approach this so differently from my generation, Gen X, and certainly baby boomers. And now we're going to soon be talking about, and we are starting to talk about Gen Z.
Right.
Talk a little bit about that.
About how
and
to...
the different relationships, how our relationships at home are evolving and how that impacts our financial perspectives.
You know, relationships come in all shapes and sizes. We have people who are choosing not to get married, just living together, still having the children, still buying the home together. Others are still, you know, getting married, and there are single moms, single parents. And so I'm finding that when it comes to money, tradition still is very strong. That you know, it's still very patriarchal in the sense that in many households, the man is the one who will perhaps take care of the larger big picture stuff, like he's the investor and he's the overseer, he does the taxes, and then she's in charge of maybe the day-to-day budget, which is still very powerful. But I find that women tell me sometimes I'm great at earning, I'm really bad at managing the money. And so my husband takes care of that, or my partner takes care of that. Or, I just tell him how much money we need and he gives it to me.
Right.
And that's just, that's a whole other panel. I have lots of thoughts on that.
We didn't have that on the behavior, so
right.
we didn't put that in the behavior segment.
But when she makes more, and I do think this is because we equate money as being power in the world, and when it comes to our relationships, we mistakenly think that money is power. So who is making more, whether that's she or he, assumes that they are the more powerful one, whether that's conscious or subconscious, because that's just what we've been taught, and that's what we've been conditioned to believe in business and in life in general. And so when she makes more, I think it's kind of good news that she takes on more responsibility, but she doesn't necessarily like it.
She's not managing more, she's earning more.
She's doing it in a silo. It happened to me, making more in my relationship, and because of what I do, I was like, I'll just take care of it, I'll manage the bills. I went about and, pursued the mortgage for the house, and I would bring my husband in when it wasn't, and we had a conversation about it because I said, I feel like I'm all alone on this island called When She Makes More. And I don't know, I don't mean for this to be intentional, what's going on? And he said, honestly, I feel that because I make less, that I may not be entitled to make all of these, to be proactively saying we should put our money here, here, and here. As a man, he said this.
That's interesting.
And I thought that was amazing that he revealed this, and I really appreciated it. You got to go there with your partner and say, what's the underlying emotional issue that's driving these irrational financial moves? And so you have to learn how to level the financial playing field, as I talk about in my book. And how do you do that with income disparity, or with one spouse not working, or one spouse that makes 10 times more? You have to address the emotions, but they're also very tactical things. And you can buy the book. No. Or we can talk after, because I don't want to hog the panel.
What do you think, Amanda?
About relationships in particular?
And money,
Yeah, I think
tricky.
it's right now, I'm divorced and repartnered, and we intentionally live separately, 10 blocks from each other, and are raising our children separately, because we each have 2. And it's like we're having so much fun creating from nothing, and that is what the opportunity is right now. And it's, if you are living inauthentically in a relationship where you want more engagement around the money and that's not happening, that's going to show up in other ways. So I think that this gender dissolve that we're seeing around money is a great opportunity to be creative. And the same is true for retirement. The way retirement was 20 years ago is not how it's going to look 20 years from now. So if we don't like the system, let's reinvent it so that it works for ourselves.
So, and which brings us to the next topic, which is the reality check regarding aging. And Celine, I want to get your perspective on this, because you are a master with the statistics, but you're also in the thick of it, working with people and understanding this issue.
Well, we didn't really talk about this at all during any of these conversations, but money's very emotional for people. And as people get older, it's even more emotional. And it's kind of interesting to watch that. So, we work with our financial advisors in a lot of different things, but there is a sort of a consultative process that happens as people get toward the retirement years, and then they start thinking about what that means. And so the first part of that conversation is, well, what do I do when I'm done with whatever it is I've been doing? And there's a lot of emotion around that and transitions around that. And then there is a really serious conversation that has to happen about what are you prepared for, right? What depending on, your age and your circumstances, you are going to be where you're going to be at that moment in time. And then how do you get your mind around what that means about your lifestyle? That's another sort of set of realities. So you'll recall, we don't have to go way back into too much time to find financial turmoil. In our last recession, we had a lot of people who had planned to retire and could not, did retire and had to go back to work because a lot of things were happening, and then you have all of this sort of rebound situation. So, we say as we kind of try to get prepared for these things, right, we can have a plan, we can keep going, but I really find that emotional clock is a lot different than the financial clock. And you have to really try to marry the two things up so that you're doing what you want to do when it's time to do it.
So let's focus on solutions. Ladies, what are there catch-up things? Are there things that people can do at different stages in their life if they're not feeling like they're on track, or they're not on track for their retirement goals?
Yeah, I see a lot of women's finances, and the thing that I've found to be the most important, other than maxing out your 401k and the things that are kind of like mathematically obvious, is you know, I think I grew up watching the Wonder Years, and I always thought there was like the house I was supposed to have, and the car I was supposed to drive, and how life was supposed to look, and we all have these ideas of what our life is supposed to look like, but that ends up costing us about 80 to 90% of our net income, and so there's no money left to save. And so the most vital thing is we actually have to, under these economic circumstances, revisit those core assumptions about what that life looks like. I just did this. I just moved. I used to have a 5,000 square foot house. That was a total nightmare, and what inspired me to start Daily Worth. Went to a 2,000 square foot house. Now I'm in an 800 square foot apartment with my 2 kids, and I am so happy. I don't have a lawn to mow. I can like clean the kitchen and the bedroom at the same time. And I've brought my housing expense down to 15% of my net income, you know,
Wow.
and it's like I kind of use myself as a guinea pig that way. It's like, if I'm going to tell other people to do this, I got to go do it myself. And there's actually benefits to having less overhead, and that is the vital thing. Is you got to get used to living on less than $2,000 a month. And I know if any of you live in New York, you're like, I'm sorry, what?
You don't live in New York,
I
right?
don't live in New York. I live in Philly. Philly, you know, it's
So
like
move to
super
Philly.
cheap there. But then you. But that's the thing is like you have to you
that's a
have
tangible
to figure
solution.
out how to live on $2,000 a month, and if you can't, you got to figure out how you get closer to that if you are aging and don't have a lot to retire on.
So just to add to that, and that's absolutely true, I think really what I'm learning from Amanda is that you have to establish goals for yourself that are realistic and really honest, you know, and really speak to what you want as opposed to what you are expected to want or you think you have to have, and to plan for it. And yes, the numbers don't lie. So if you haven't run calculators, you have to run calculators and figure out where are you today, where do you want to be at retirement age, whether that's 40 or 65 or never, and what will that look like financially? What's the cost of that? And then work backwards. I mean, the math it speaks for itself, but I think that sometimes literacy in math is not enough to instigate change. You have to actually be inspired. And what inspires us is the prospect of knowing that in 10 years we could have X, Y, and Z lifestyle and we could feel better about it and be more fulfilled. And sometimes retirement is so abstract, so think more present day and maybe 10 years from now, 15 years from now. Look at it as sort of like life stages and not just retirement as this end all, but that your life is evolving. And so the constant reevaluation is also very important because we end up sort of adopting this lifestyle that maybe made sense for the last 2 years, but now it doesn't. And now we still have those expenses that we don't really need. So a friend of mine does this thing every year. She takes her budget to ground zero and starts over.
I've done that.
interesting.
I've done
Instead
that
of
3
cutting
times in the
buildings.
last 9 years.
Yeah.
It is
I like
awesome.
that.
And
Clear it all out.
because all your subscriptions, all those memberships, all those other things
Go
that,
to zero.
maybe
You're opting in.
3 years ago that made sense for you at where you are in your life and what you wanted to invest in. Now, not so much, but $10 here, $300 there, it adds up, and I actually just unsubscribed from my co-working space because I realized my son's in school now, the house is quiet, I can work from home again. And I extrapolated that into a 30-year investment portfolio.
Wow.
Earning about 3-4% after inflation and this and that. It's like $300,000.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, which do I rather?
right.
What benefits me more, a $300,000 lump sum in retirement or a space that I never go to, but I have to, I can say that I have a
And
workspace.
you could also change your mind, by the way.
Right.
If it doesn't work for
It's
you.
month
Most
to
of these
month.
things, if you drop a subscription.
No, she's going to get the retirement. She's not going to change
No,
it.
I
She's
know,
gonna
but
keep
if it's right for her business. Anyway,
Yeah.
all right, we have time for one last question. So the final thing I want to talk about is I call it the other ticking clock, which is the fact that there's only so many hours in a day, and we as women, it is a reality that we are often the ones still doing the household management. We are sort of, the CFOs of our family and getting everything done. So the question is, how do we manage that and still keep our eye on the ball? So
You don't do it all.
Yeah.
delegate.
You lower your standards.
Right.
I like that.
Seriously, can we like high five?
Yeah,
I'm here.
Yes.
You can't change your husband, you can't change your kids, okay? Sometimes they're gonna eat cereal for dinner, it's totally fine. Done is better than perfect, and there's
true.
always TaskRabbit. You're welcome.
I feel so much better now.
Yeah, I find that's more of a conversation. I mean, we all spend a lot of time on social media, a lot of time doing other things. I find that is a narrative that we need to work on. I think there is a lot of time, actually. Have you ever meditated for an hour? It takes forever
meditate for a
the
minute.
hour to go through. There is a lot of time, and you have plenty of time.
Right.
You just have to block out the
Right.
time on your calendar, and you will get it done. That's all I gotta say.
So this is maybe unrelated, but someone just told me how to get 2 hours of sleep in 20 minutes. So I'm not going to demonstrate because I'm wearing a dress, but envision this. Get on your back, lift your legs 45 degrees against a wall, and just relax, turn off your phone, close your eyes. You don't have to meditate, you can sleep 20 minutes, but what that does to your body, something with like the blood circulation and I don't know, it's the equivalent of getting 2 hours of sleep.
Can you demonstrate for us?
I can't because I'm wearing Spanx, it's not
So
going to work.
she's going to be doing demonstrations off to the side during the lunch break. Find Farnoosh, she'll
45-degree
demonstrate it for
angle.
you,
So
okay?
this is your leg and this is your back. And hands, resting. Don't be on Facebook. Just let yourself be calm and still
Yeah.
for 20 minutes.
Awesome. See, we promised you solutions.
told you.
right?
That's right. Yeah.
Final word.
Yeah, no, I'm piling on to the you can't do it all with the story. So my favorite story, I don't think I'll ever forget this, was when I have 3 kids. When my 2 boys, they were in an all-boys school, I used to drop them off at carpool. I pull up one day and I see one of the moms I used to talk to on my way in, and she got out, looked refreshed. I mean, she just looked spectacular. She probably had like 5 kids, and I was like, whoa, you look great. She says, I just got back from a girls' weekend. I said, oh, good. She goes, let me tell you a story. She said, I'll make up her husband's name, Bob. So, left Bob with the kids, and he said he had it all under control. So, I've been back now about a week, and I'm driving in every day, and I'm hearing little things. And he said, so how'd it go? He says, fine. So one of them said, well, we went to the movies on Friday night, and the baby was in the car seat, and Dad was, taking a nap next to him. Okay. Then she said, I was taking out the trash, and I saw these boxes of Cocoa Puffs. And she said, so what did you all eat? Cocoa Puffs and Pepsi. And she's sitting there and she's glowing, and I said, huh? She says, Celine, they didn't die and I had a fabulous time. It's good. Yeah. So.
It's so true. And I always, whenever I leave my son with my husband and he does something, like he took him last week to an R-rated movie and he's 10,
Right.
I go, oh, but you know what? He's okay.
Let it go.
He's okay.
Let it go.
I
Let
just
it go.
let it go.
Let it go.
I mean,
You can't
whatever.
erase those movie scenes, though.
All right, so we have 3 minutes left. Final word from each of you. Advice, solutions for these women? More sleep tips?
Yeah, I mean, if you feel any if you feel any resistance to the money conversation, I have a tool for you. It's called Money Type, moneytype.me. It gives you a personality test to show you how to make money interesting versus the ways you might think you have to change in order to make money interesting. So check that out. It works wonders. Moneytype.me.
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 I think the best resources are all in this room. We are a community of women who are ambitious and we want more and we are thriving, and I think that we have a lot to share. And maybe you don't consider yourself a guru, but listen, you go through your life making wins and losses with your money, and that needs to be shared, and it's invaluable. And on my podcast every Friday, I answer listeners' questions. So go to SoMoneyPodcast.com, click on Ask Farnoosh. You can also co-host the show with me if you so desire on Fridays. It's really fun to connect with listeners and pick their brains, but also you are a resource, and I want to tap your brains. So I hope to hear from you.
And I just say, get started, don't put it off. Get a goal, get a plan. There are so many resources out there. Prudential has a bunch. Go to prudential.com and so many other places as well. But get started, don't wait.
All right, well, thank you all. This was amazing.
Hi, I'm Claudia Chan, and I'm the founder of She Summit. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends and community. At She Summit, we believe there is a leader and change agent inside everyone, and our goal is to unleash you to lead change from where you are for issues that you care about to benefit your life, your family, your workplace, and even the world. There's so many ways to follow us if you're interested in this leadership content. You can actually subscribe to this YouTube channel, of course, but also visit our website where you can sign up for our newsletter and learn more about our community, new leadership courses that we're rolling out, and our 2019 She Summit conference. And I also just launched a podcast based on my book. It's called the How We Rise Leadership Podcast. So please follow us. There's so many ways to follow us. And I'm so excited for you to join our new generation of leaders to lead change again for our lives and for the world.